All right. We're live. This is our third podcast with the 13th Man. I am your host, Ray Custis, PRP counselor and coach for the 13th Man. And I also have our phenomenal guest on, Xavion. Can you hear me, Xavion?
Yes.
Awesome, awesome. So we're just excited to be able to come to you this evening and have a session about mental health. I believe it's a topic that is so important for all of us to engage in conversation about strategies, and especially around the holidays that are coming up right now. So we're going to definitely dive right into it, and of course, we're going to answer any questions that you might have towards the end of our podcast. Okay. Some of the things that we're going to cover, we're going to be covering different coping strategies, as well as suicide prevention, as well as anxiety, depression, looking like what does that look like? How do we manage that better? We're going to also look at the different ways that we can utilize our coping strategies during the holiday season. And any other subjects that may come up around mental health, we'll definitely engage in conversation about that. And again, this is just a topic that is dear to me as I continue to support the various clients that I work with, especially with the 13th Men and their families as well. So, Xavier, you can definitely cut me off at any time. Please do so. If there's any questions or comments that you want to chime in and add tremendous value, I've had the privilege of working with Xavier, and he's done some phenomenal work over the last year. So I'm definitely glad to have him on.
So
So,
I do have a
yeah,
question.
absolutely. Let's do it.
So what are some things that people struggling with their mental health can do if the support they're receiving doesn't help?
Awesome. So some of the things that I believe that has had some success in regards to what can support us all in regards to mental health is number one, how are we taking care of our self-care? I believe that that's a very huge piece, a huge ingredient to how we can better ourselves as human beings throughout this life that we live. And so self-care is different for everybody. And so when we look at self-care, this could be, going out for a walk in nature. It could be exercising, spending time with family, loved ones. It could be, literally writing, journaling, reading, doing something that actually fills your cup, as I like to say, so that you have the ability to go out and to pour into others, whether it be your family, whether it be in the community, whether it be even here at the 13th Man. You have to have your cup filled first in order to give something. And a lot of times, in regards to mental health, many of us are pouring from an empty cup, and I've been guilty of it many times. We have conversations with my family about the things that we all need. We call it win session when we have our family sessions, and we all talk about what we need. And I know recently I said, you know what, I need to focus more on my self care, and that's something that I feel like I was getting away from. So I let everybody know, hey, like maybe dad needs like 20 minutes, a day, or maybe I need, maybe an hour throughout the week. I need to get back into my exercise routine. These are the things that help me mentally and emotionally and physically stay on track. And helps me to think better. I have a different vantage point when we're dealing with different challenges in life, all because I'm filling my cup and I'm able to pour out into others. So that's one of the major keys, I feel like. And then the second thing is, Avion, is going to ask for help and getting help when you need it. So now there's a ton of resources around mental health, whether it's books around healing and trauma, whether it's TV shows. I know that The Me You Can't See came out with Oprah and Prince Harry. So there's a number of different resources that we can engage in if we're not able to engage in therapy, which is number one. Then we're able to pull resources from other ways. The internet is full of great resources, but I definitely always say fact check because the internet is full of information. But those are some of the things I feel are just key: self-care and going to get therapy or therapeutic help in order to manage some of the different challenges that you're going through. And that's actually a great question that you actually were talking about that, because it kind of leads into some of the coping strategies that I just wanted to mention. So, you know, COVID-19 has completely dismantled a lot of us. It has completely changed how we deal with school, how we deal in our relationships, how we operate at home. And it has been a huge challenge for many of us, if not all of us. And so I wanted to be able to share just a couple of strategies that I use personally and with my clients when I feel like anxiety is starting to go through the roof, or I'm feeling like I'm going into a space of depression, or I'm just feeling like I'm not myself or at my best. One of the things that I like to do, Xavier, is breathing strategies, breathing techniques, because I learned that your breath is boss. And so, what that pretty much means is when you're anxious, when you're worried about something, your heart rate is going through the roof, right? And so, if I'm able to manage my heart rate, it helps me to calm down. It helps me to see clearly. So if I'm in a space where I'm anxious and I'm stressed all the time, my heart rate is beating out of my chest, I'm fearful about something, I'm probably not going to make a very good decision, right? Because I'm doing it out of fear. And so what I like to do is different belly breaths is what one of the strategies is called. Other strategies are where you can actually take deep breaths in, hold your breath for a few seconds, and then blow out all of the air. You do that a few times. It helps to regulate your nervous system. So that's one of the things that I think that are key, as well as exercise, getting your body moving. If you're feeling down, you're not feeling good, if you go out for a run or just a walk, go play basketball. I know you play tennis, Xavier, like going to get your body moving, that literally changes your physiology, and it changes the chemicals that happen in your brain and goes all throughout your body. So just the simple fact of just moving your body, even have a dance party. I'm all about like turning on some good music and like show me all the new dance moves, catch me up. um, so I can like hurt my knees and do it. But I'm all about like moving our bodies when feeling like, hey, I'm down and I'm not having a good time, or I'm just, life is just hard right now. So those are just some of the strategies, along with journaling, all your thoughts, getting it out on paper. That's helpful too. Helps you to process, some of the things that are going on in your life personally.
And so how about when you have a friend and they haven't been acting normally? What should someone do?
Yeah. So, and whatever that looks normal for that person, that's great that you asked this question, because that kind of leads into suicide prevention, right? We have to be conscious about the signs, right? What are our friends doing that they weren't doing before? Some of those signs are they may be doing risky behavior, more risky behavior than what they were doing before. Let's say they don't take really risk at all, and now all of a sudden they're doing things that are very risk adverse, and you're like, whoa, when did you start doing that? Um, Dealing with teenagers, you got alcohol, drug abuse. That's another big sign. Isolation, right? Not wanting to be around anyone, just kind of wanting to stay in their room, closing the door, turning off the lights. That's another warning sign in regards to, hey, our friend may not be the in a healthy space right now. Some of those other things may be, personality changes. Maybe they were fun and very outgoing before, and now all of a sudden they're not very outgoing anymore. So when those things happen, one, we want to have a safe space, right, for our friend. We want our friends to be able to come to us and let us know, like, hey man, or hey sis, what's going on? I noticed that it seems like something's different, something's off with you. Is everything okay? And so being a safe space for them, not giving judgment, but for them to be able to express, hey, look, I'm going through a lot with my family or my health, or this happened in my life, or I'm going through a trauma, or something's happening, right? Because those behaviors always underlying there's something's going on, right? That's totally put them in a situation where now they feel like they may not want to live anymore, or they're thinking about it. So it's good to be able to hold space for them. And if you find out that they are feeling suicidal or they're talking about it more often, um, being able again to be a resource for them, and also honestly telling their parents and the authorities. And that's one of the hardest things that we have to do as friends or family, right? To be able to report that, hey, this person may have a has a plan of hurting themselves. And that's another question you can ask them. Do you have a plan? If they're talking about suicide, do they have a plan, and do you have the means? So that means like, hey, here's my plan and this is how I'm going to do it, and I have the means, whether that's a weapon or whatever it may be. I have the means to do this. And that is where you have to raise the red flag and say, you know what? You love them, you care about them, and you want the best for them. But in this moment, you want to be able to, again, call the authorities, right? You can call the National Suicide Prevention Hotline, and I can give you that number, and we could probably post it here in the chat. But it's 1-800 273 talk. It gives them an opportunity to talk to a professional in regards to what they're feeling. But most of all, you have to tell their parents, and that's a hard thing to do, and they may not want you to, but this is where we have to literally be there for them, and get them the help that they need. Hopefully that answered your question in regards to that, and that's been running rampant. The statistics with suicide in regards to our teenagers since the pandemic has gone up. Uh, it's very sad. And so what we need to do again is to make sure we are giving the right resources uh, to our teens, and our young adults, so that they're able to utilize those resources to get the support that they need. Um, but as friends, and like I said, as family, we have to make sure we're not coming from a place of judgment, but coming from a place of love and support, and letting them know that you're there for them. And a lot of times, I've learned that they need a place that they can just open up and just talk and get some things out. So that's a being able to hold that space for them is critical. It's absolutely critical. Um, just
So,
some, yeah, absolutely.
how do you support somebody that doesn't show signs but actually has mental health issues?
Yeah. So I believe that one of the best ways is finding out if they've shared with you what their mental health challenge is, if it's ADD, if it's PTSD. It's really about learning about their particular condition, right? And I always recommend parents that I work with, when if your kid gets diagnosed with ADD or PTSD or defining disorder, like look into what it means, right? Look at the symptoms, look at the side effects, right? If there's medication involved, make sure that you are educating yourself on the particular diagnosis, right? And so if you have a friend that has a diagnosis, or a family member, learn about it. Learn about if they have bipolar or schizophrenia, like learn about what that disorder is and how it can affect how it can show up, right? So that if you see the behavior, it's not going to alarm you like, oh my gosh, like why is he or she acting like this, right? You had already educated yourself like, oh, these are some of the symptoms that may show signs, like these are the things that may come up. And so now you don't take things so personal when if they blurt something out that they didn't mean to say, right? And now like, oh, this is a side effect, this is a symptom of having this particular condition. So that's one of the things that you can do.
Do people with mental health issues, do they need medicine?
Not all mental health issues need medication, right? A lot of times people need therapy, right? I'm a huge proponent for therapy. I personally go myself, right? It's important to be able to sit down with a professional to be able to unpack some of those issues. Personally, a lot of my issues came from childhood, right? Some of those different traumas that I went through growing up as a child, mentally, emotionally, physically, and, spiritual abuse, right? So all of that affected me as an adult. And so when you get in therapy, you work through all of those different issues. It's not that you need medication all the time. There are cases that is necessary, and that is up to the therapist and the psychiatrist and the team of individuals to be able to prescribe those things if they feel as though if that is something that needs to be a part of their treatment plan, right? But that's not always the case. The clients, many clients that I work with, they don't need medication. They need support in therapy. They need support from their family. They need safe environments where they're able to open up, express themselves, be able to cry, share emotions, share feelings, have conversations like we're having right now about mental health, and be able to share their story, right? So it's not always needed, but it is needed sometimes depending on the severity of the case. So it is all on a case by case situation basis.
Is
Um,
it
mhm.
is it really hard for a person with mental health issues to seek help?
Sometimes it can be, a lot of times it's they don't know what's going on with themselves, right? And so it is, especially in our community. I'll be honest with you. It took me 5 years to go to therapy when I was introduced to it. The reason why is because there was such a negative stigma around therapy. If you went to therapy, you were considered crazy or you were loony or something was wrong with you, right? So that idea, that stigma, was heavy in the African American culture. And that's one of the things that we are working to break now is that making this a normal thing that, hey, going to therapy is a good thing. Even when things are going good in life, it's still good to go. It's like, it's good for us to go to the dentist. It's good for us to go get our checkups, right? Physically, our physicals. It's good for us to do those things, but why isn't it good enough to go get checked in mentally, right? Make sure that we're okay mentally, because I can honestly tell you that anything unhealed is going to come up in your adulthood. And so I really wish that, I was your age, Xavier, and I went a long time ago because I would have avoided so many different challenges later on in life as an adult. If I had went early on, I would have been able to heal from some of those things and been able to cope better. But it's important whether you go now or you go later. I definitely want to encourage everybody to go, even if it's for a couple of times a year. Get your check-in, just like you do with your dentist and just like you do with your physical. Get your mind checked in. Get checked in and just make sure, like, hey, I'm meeting with my therapist just to check in, making sure I'm okay emotionally. If there's things I got to work out, take some sessions to work those things out because you're going to show up better in every single area in your life.
So I wanted to ask, do you think there are any ethnic or racial groups that most likely have mental illnesses?
So there's a great documentary, and I mentioned it a little earlier. The Me You Can't See that Oprah and Prince Harry put together. They literally did a documentary about mental illness around the entire world, and so it didn't matter what your background was, what nationality you were. It didn't matter any of that. The fact is that mental illness, if we want to call it that, mental health, mental wellness, the fact that we're taking care of our minds, this is a challenge and a problem that is worldwide. No matter if you're black, white, Hispanic, Asian, it just doesn't matter. Male, female, it doesn't matter how well you are economically, well off financially, or if you have none, right? It affects us all, and we all have to be able to have courage enough to go deal with whatever we're dealing with head on. And it can be scary at times to be able to do something for the first time. But once it's done the first time and you begin to get results, it becomes a norm for you. It's like, hey, going to therapy is like going to the gym. It's something that is healthy for me, and it's also going to be healthy for those around me. And so I believe that the if we focus on our mental health in our country and in our world, um, especially in our school systems and then even in our home environments, if we're healthier mentally, won't our communities be healthier? Won't our counties be healthier? Won't our states be healthier? Won't our country be healthier? I believe it'll be a more flourishing environment. But until we really focus our attention on what we need to heal, it's going to continue to be a challenge for us. And we're passing all of these different traumas down to the next generation. And this is something that, I want to be able to voice and advocate for all of us to go heal, so that we're not passing out these behaviors down to you, right? Because then you take those behaviors and then you're going to pass it down to your kids if you have kids one day, and so on and so on. Somewhere someone's got to stop it and say, I'm going to get the help I need so I don't pass these unhealed traits down to my kids and the kids and so on and so on.
So I'm wondering what things can cause mental health problems.
A number of different things. Some people who are born, there may be a chemical imbalance when they're born. That could have been caused by a number of various things. It could have been that uh, while they were in their mother's womb, the mother could have been abusive to their body. Maybe they were taking drugs, or maybe some unforeseen things where there was just trauma in the delivery. Right? Sometimes you know, getting here in this life, right? Actually giving birth to a child, like it's an actual miracle every single time. Um, that can be a very traumatic event for a child and for a mother. So some of those things can create mental health disorders. Also, the environment, right? Environment can create mental health disorders. If you're constantly in a fight, flight, or freeze all the time because you have trauma going on around you all the time, you may develop something called PTSD. It's like you're living in a war zone all the time, right? And so your response to, a car door that slams, or maybe a pin dropping on the floor can trigger you into a negative response, all because you grew up in an environment that was like a war zone, or maybe you grew up in a household that was extremely abusive. And so those things can change a person's mind, and that can end up giving them a mental illness. It can change how the brain functions and how it operates. And so we have to be extremely careful about, again, creating healthier environments. And that all starts with self. How do I heal my unhealed wounds from my past and even in my present, so I show up better, so I can create a better, healthier environment? Because if I create a healthy environment, then my kids won't be, they won't grow up with possibly having different mental health challenges. But there are a number of different ways that those different disorders can come up. But like I said, I've seen it through, again, it's whether through abuse, whether it's through drugs, or whether it was through maybe a challenging delivery, or the unforeseen of, hey, just this child has, been wired a certain way and we don't know why, and they don't have a reason for it, right? Some things are just unknown. And then there's also the environment where it is causing us to think and operate a certain way, which can cause mental illness as well. Those are great
So
questions.
so could someone who grew up without, a parent, any could they get any form of mental health issues from that experience?
Anything is possible. It's funny because, like, a lot of us, we try to really make mental health a very linear thing, where it's like we try to compartmentalize the different disorders. We try to carpent we try to put everything in these categories, in these boxes. And unfortunately, the mind has like billions and billions of neurons and endings, that we are a very complicated creature, right, and species when it comes to our own personal mental health. So the experiences that we have are all going to shape us differently. You may grow up without having your mother and father, right? And it may not affect you like a person next to you who literally has a lot of abandonment issues, and that leads to drugs and alcohol, and that leads to a whole other different thing. So it's, these different experiences are all going to affect us differently. What's trauma for one isn't trauma for another. What's a challenge for one isn't a challenge for the other. And so that's why it's very important for us not to try to put us all in a box and say, hey, well, if you didn't grow up with a father or a mother and this is your situation, you're probably going to get this mental illness. We have to take it case by case. And that's very, very important, that we're all very unique. There's only one of us, right? There's only one Xavier ever that's ever going to exist on this planet ever, right? And so that you're so unique, and I'm so unique, and everyone listening so unique. And so we have to really understand that, how we're affected is going to be different than how someone else is going to be affected by it. Awesome questions. Awesome questions.
So
Um,
how can parents notice signs of anxiety and depression?
So a number of different ways. One, I think it's important for us as parents. We need to know our kids, right? And we need to have relationships with our kids. We need to connect with our kids, right? And so when we are connecting with our kids, we know when they're off, right? That means I have relationship with you. I have rapport with you. So being able to see some of those shifts. Now, I can give you some general things that I've seen dealing with clients and some of the behaviors that have come up. Some of those things with anxiety and depression look like, again, isolation, um, maybe not eating, not bathing, not taking care of their hygiene, not wanting to socialize. Those are some of the top things that I see, the teenage group going through right now when we're talking about, and depression, anxiety, right? They may not want to go to school, right? So maybe they were a 3.5 student. Now all of a sudden they're a 2.0 or a 1.5. Like all of a sudden there's these drastic changes. All right. Maybe their friends group changed. Right. And so now that they're hanging around different people now, that may be, a negative influence on them. So it's really about knowing your child, like knowing your son and or your daughter, and being able to see that their behaviors are changing. And what I would recommend, every family sit down and have that family meeting every week and say, hey, look, how are we doing? What does everybody need? Have that win session. Everyone talk about, this is what I need, or this is what I'm struggling with right now. Because it's important to voice those things, and to teach you all to be able to voice what you do need so that we can support you. And making sure that when you do tell us what you need, that we're like, oh, that's small, or that's not, to minimize what you need. We need to make sure we're actually valuing what you're telling us. And so you may need more time to yourself, because you live in a household with 5 different siblings, right? Or cousins, or whatever. And you need time where it's just space for you to think, right? Or maybe you need time with your parent. Hey, I need more one-on-one time. I feel like, we don't connect like that anymore. Or maybe you need therapy. You need more support, right? Because you're mentally going through a hard time in school. So it's really about voicing it. And I think that when we're connected with our kids, we're able to see those things more clearly, and we can address those issues quickly. Again, awesome, like phenomenal questions. Um, I'll give you some statistics that I was looking at recently. This is from the CDC with anxiety and depression. And this, of course, these are just the numbers that they were able to uh, have those who were diagnosed, because there's probably many others that have not been evaluated. So these numbers are not even, where they probably should be. But they're saying 7.1% of children age 3 to 17 years old, which is approximately 4.4 million kids in the world, I mean in the United States, have been diagnosed with anxiety. 4.4 million. And those are just those who've been diagnosed. So imagine if you've got a whole other group of kids and young men and women who haven't even gone to get evaluated. So these numbers are a whole lot higher. Also, 3.2% of children aged 3 to 17, that's approximately 1.9 million, have been diagnosed with depression. And I can tell you since the pandemic, those numbers have gone up through the roof. And again, so many of our kids haven't been evaluated, right? We're just kind of going with the flow and just trying to manage, but they haven't been evaluated. So these numbers, again, they're a lot higher than the statistics are actually showing. So those are just some of those statistics for us to, be aware of.
So, how should someone deal with loss?
Mm. Again, I believe it's so important when you're going through grief, when you're going through loss, losing a loved one, especially during this time with COVID, which many of us may know someone or close to someone who passed away because of COVID, or maybe through police brutality or whatever it may be. Um, Again, therapy, I'm going to say it as many times as I can. Therapy is a safe space for you to go, and you can actually meet with a grief counselor, right? So a grief counselor is specifically, that is their focus. Their focus is grief. Their focus is when you're going through the process of losing something, right? And I think it's important again that we connect with those resources if you're going through grief and going through loss. Um, on top of that, don't deny your feelings. Accept the fact that this is hurting, acknowledge it, and have find safe spaces for you to talk about how you feel. I think that is very important when you're going through grief, when you're going through loss, or when you're going through anything that is traumatic or hurtful, or just having a hard time working through something. Being able to just talk about it sometime with someone, and someone just being a sounding board and being a supportive ear really can help minimize some of the negative emotions that are associated to that event of that person or group of people exiting our lives. But therapy is definitely a number one thing to go do. Like, make that an agenda. If you've gone through that through this year, in the last year, if you've gone through grief and loss, please go get therapy. Please go. It will make all the world of a difference
Is there
when you do go.
is there is there an increase in mental health cases during holidays?
That's a great question. The answer is yes. And so we just talked about grief and loss. People lose loved ones, and so they're not here for this Thanksgiving or Christmas or New Year's, right? So the mental health challenges are higher around this time of year. And I'm glad that you actually brought this up, because I want to be able to give tips on how to manage, just a few, how to manage through the holidays in regards to mental health. One of the things that, again, I mentioned was just acknowledging how you feel. Many of us didn't grow up with talking about your feelings, right? You're really upset. You're hurt about whatever happened. We didn't really talk about it. I know I grew up. I didn't get to talk about my feelings. They weren't acknowledged. We didn't. That wasn't a conversation. It was always about just kind of pushing through, just keep going. But unfortunately, that's stuffing how I feel, and eventually, when you keep stuffing it, eventually you're gonna blow. There's gonna be a situation where you can't stuff it anymore, right? And you will eventually explode. It may not be now. It may not be until 5 years from now, but you're eventually gonna explode because of all of those feelings. So being able to acknowledge, like, your feelings. Hey, I'm sad. I'm like, I need to cry. I need to express myself this way. As long as you're not harming yourself, do those things. Express how you feel and talk about your feelings. Second thing is learning to say no during the holidays. This may be a hard one for many, but knowing that you have the ability to say no to, hey, I'm not going to be able to make it over there this year, um, may save you from re-traumatizing yourself. You may not have to say no because there are certain family members and or friends that aren't healthy for you. So you may have to say no to that particular event. Um, and that's a hard thing for some of us to do, because we've been so used to doing those traditional things. But sometimes for our mental health and our sanity and for our peace, we have to make sure that we're making decisions on our mental health. Is it okay for me to hang around these people because they really make me feel horrible? They really put me in a negative space, and then when I'm done spending time with them, I feel like I'm going into a mode of depression. And being able to acknowledge that and being honest with that, you may have to say no. I can't do that anymore. You know, setting healthy boundaries, right? If I do end up saying yes, and I know that there are certain conversations that family brings up that I'm not okay with, letting them know ahead of time, I will come, and I'm letting you know that this is not going to be a conversation when I get there. If the conversation comes up, I will remove myself and I will leave. So now I've set proper expectations of having healthy boundaries of how things are going to go. And I think that that is very important. So, how to say no, how to set healthy boundaries before you go to certain family events. And then finally, during this time, again, dealing with grief and loss during this time also, or maybe having triggering traumatic events may come up for you during the holiday season, go seek professional help. Go get the help that you need professionally from a therapist. You know, you can go to psychologytoday.com and look, you can literally filter it by the insurance that you particularly have. If you don't have insurance, you have it through the state. They have resources through the state. We also have resources here. Like I'm a resource. If you need a therapist, I can go through my Rolodex. I work with plenty of them to be able to give you the support that you need. And nowadays they can even do virtual. So again, getting the mental health professional support that you need, on top of setting boundaries, being able to say no, and then setting proper expectations with your family, and then on top of that, being able to acknowledge your feelings. These are going to be three keys during this holiday season. Be able to check in with yourself, and know when to say no, know when to go get support professionally. This is just key. Okay, it's key, and I'm encouraging everyone to please go do this. Don't hesitate. Don't wait like I did 5 years into, having being married and having children, and then literally disrupting, my family's growth because I just had this negative stigma. Go get the professional help now. Get yourself plugged into environments like this. This is like a great environment here at 13th Man. It's a safe space. We have literally private conversations about what we're going through, and to be able to bounce off ideas and strategies, and it's therapeutic, right? It's not therapy, but it's therapeutic, and that's very important as we go through this holiday season.
So, uh how should somebody act on an abusive relationship?
So how should someone act in an abusive relationship? Let me
No,
make
I
sure.
mean, how should somebody how should somebody you know deal with an abusive relationship?
Okay. Yeah. I mean, and this is and depending on what this abuse looks like. Number one, if you have fear for your safety, that's number one. You need to get into a safe space. Um, Connect with someone that you can trust. Uh, Also, you may not want to, but you have to call the authorities. If you are being physically abused and you are fearful of your life, that's something like you have to protect yourself. So again, calling the authorities on that, as well as telling a trusted loved one or someone who you trust about what's going on, and help them. They can help you get help. If you go to them honestly, and they're a good friend or family of yours, then they're going to want to help you out. They may even take you into their home, and they can stay with you for a time being while you get things in order. But don't hesitate. Go get help. Go talk to those that you trust. And it's a hard thing to do. People who are going through those different circumstances, there's a lot of fear there, and so having the courage to say no more, it may take time for many, um, but really loving yourself enough to say like this is not acceptable anymore is what I hope and pray for those who are dealing in those relationships.
I don't have any more questions.
Awesome, awesome. And boy, I'm gonna tell you, those were phenomenal, phenomenal questions, and I think we covered some very important topics around the holiday season, depression, suicide, what it looks like, giving some coping strategies for this time being. I definitely want to make sure that we're opening up the floor for questions as well. I'm gonna see what I can do to field them. So if there are questions, I'm not able to see them on here, but I'm actually going to see them on my phone. I'll get them text to me. But this has been a great conversation, Xavier, and it's been long overdue. We have to continue to have these conversations and continue to give insight on how we can cope better through the pandemic, through the injustices, through grief, through the holiday season. It's been a long, long year. It's like the year that hasn't. It's like it's taken forever to end. It's like one of those long seasons, and so we are at the fourth quarter here of this year, and I want to make sure that we're all equipped and prepared for, creating a healthier 2022. Right? I can't believe it, 2022, and plugging ourselves in on these calls. Letting the 13th man know what we need more of, so that we can be more of a resource for, this environment and for others. And for those of who aren't a part of the 13th man, and maybe they just may be listening in from another part of the nation or the world, like this is a phenomenal organization doing great work, great purposeful work to support young men and the families of these young men, to give them a space where they can grow healthy. I've always been a firm believer of when a man is healthy, a family can be healthy. Has a better chance of being healthy when the man is healthy. When a man is unhealthy, the family is unhealthy. And so if the family is unhealthy, the community is unhealthy. When the community is unhealthy, the county is unhealthy. Connected to the state is unhealthy. Now our nation's unhealthy. And so we're dealing with a lot of problems right now. And I truly believe it's because we, as men, we have a lot of healing to do. And so I'm encouraging all of us to go and do the necessary things that we need to go get healing. Um, so I don't believe we have any questions right now. We've got some viewers on, so don't be shy. I give one more opportunity for anyone to ask any questions. Um, Definitely like and share. These different podcasts. This is the third one. Definitely honored to be a part of it and to contribute. Share it with others so that others can be a part of what the 13th man is doing. They may not be able to, contribute financially to the work, but they may be able to tell someone else about the great work that's happening here. So I do want to thank everybody who's took the time out to spend time with Xavier and I on this particular important subject around mental health. I hope it's been something that has been a blessing to you in your life. Xavier, those questions are phenomenal. Yeah, the first time I met you, I was like, man, this is a phenomenal, this kid is like intelligent, he's wise. And I want to thank you for, taking the time out of your busy schedule, because I know you got school stuff going on to add value here in this conversation. Thank you so much for being a part of this conversation. Awesome. So without further ado, we're going to go ahead and wrap things up. Continue to, again, focus on self-care, focus on connecting yourself with a therapist. All right. Get the professional support that you need. Continue to plug yourself in environments like this that are therapeutic. And I know that the more that we heal, the healthier our families will be. And most of all, the healthier our world is going to be. Awesome. Awesome. Oh, we do have one question. Okay. All right. So I'm going to wait for this question to come in. Okay, I think we're back in. All right, let's see. So the question comes in, can you talk more about people not wanting to get help from rehabilitation centers? And I just want to safely assume, are we talking about rehabilitation centers in regards to substance abuse? And if that's the case, I believe that those who are not wanting to get help, if it's in regards to substance abuse, there's always a deeper issue in regards to substance abuse. Uh, why is a person using substances, right? Why are they masking how they're feeling? Why are they masking the trauma that they probably experienced? A lot of times it's just a mask. And so there's a book called What Happened to You, right? Again, Oprah and one of the doctors that she worked with came out with this recently. Instead of us asking the questions of what's wrong with you, we ask the questions of what happened to you. So when we're dealing with someone who's not wanting to get help in regards to substance abuse, and not wanting to go to these rehabilitation centers, we're dealing with someone in a situation where something traumatic happened to them, and they're covering it up through substances. And it's, a lot of times it's not like they don't want to get help. When you're on, any kind of heavy substances, you are now controlled. It is a control mechanism. So it's highly addictive in some cases. So case by case situation, but just know that creating a safe and loving environment for those individuals, and just encouraging them to go, is what we can do to encourage them to heal from whatever situation that you're going through in regards to healing and rehabbing. So I believe that was our one question, and that is the end. So I want to thank everyone for taking time out with Xavier and myself. And like I said, continue to do the work on yourself. Healing is not an end journey. It's a constant journey. We're going to be doing it for the rest of our lives. So make it a habit, make self-care a habit, and make therapy a part of your process in regards to checking in with your mind and your emotions and making sure that you're healthy in those areas. Okay. So everyone have a blessed and healthy rest of the night. Safe holidays. Please have a safe and blessed holiday season. If I don't hear from you or see you between now and the end of the year, which I believe I will, but just in case, please continue to take care of yourself and the loved ones around you. Have a blessed rest of the night, everyone.